It's Morgan Lynzi.
Hi, it's Bahbah.
Welcome to Wild Night In.
I'm always hungry to connect with myself and others deeply. That's why I'm sitting down with the creators of culture to reclaim space to skip the superficial. My first guest is Bahbah. With over 1 million followers, she's known for her intimate photography, highlighting themes of self-discovery, heartbreak, and healing. As we savor some delicious kanafa, we'll dive deep to discuss the self-discovery journey that led her to become an artist, what it means to be a Palestinian woman in today's world, and how, despite the overwhelming news and online noise, she's standing in her truth. And my first question is, how are you really feeling?
For me, I carry generational trauma from my parents and my grandparents, and then I'm also trying to process the trauma of everything we're seeing today. Yeah, right now I'm really struggling to find the words. On a personal level, I'm so blessed to be surrounded by such brilliant, loving, caring Palestinian women and men, and we gather and we just hold each other, we hold space, we cook for each other, and we cry, and we've been doing that pretty frequently lately. Yeah. I have so many different circles and so many different groups that I belong to, and there is people who I did once call my best friends who are actively attacking me and trying to silence me for the things that I share online. And so it's just really hard because I do feel the divide. Yeah. I feel it in such a big way, and I think in LA and in Hollywood, it's when you actively have these red crosses on your, or a red laser, whatever, a target on you. Yep. You have to strategize how you talk about this, because you lean to, if you come off too aggressive, then they'll reduce you to a label. I've built my brand on Instagram for the past 10 years, maybe even longer. I've never shied away from my identity. I've never, not once, tried to hide that from my community and my followers, and everyone knows I'm Palestinian, and I've been advocating for our rights from day one. Yeah. And so what came as the biggest surprise is that when October 7th happened, suddenly my voice and my identity was being targeted. Yeah. And everything that I said or anything that I would post that would just raise awareness of the women, children, and men and doctors who were being slaughtered and massacred would cause such outrage. And I still can't process that the very people who have paraded my art and celebrated my art and had my art on their walls are the same people who are oh, I don't support you. I don't support your identity. And it's I just can't process that.
The statement alone, I don't support your identity.
My art is my identity.
So you want to extract my humanity, which is really the greater issue here, is being able to choose who and what is of value and who and what matters.
And how is it that my life and my life matters less now that this has happened? I'm still the same person. I'm still the same artist you've loved. I still have the same beliefs that you had on your walls. You guys, not you, but people have purchased my book and been I bought your book. How can you say all these things? And I'm saying these things because it's who I am.
Did you open to the first page of this
Did you open to the first page? Did you open to the last page? Do people even know? This is everything I represent. It is my core.
It literally says Free Palestine.
I don't know. It's just sad. But everyone's Sarah, it's a blessing. I lost 15,000 followers this month, which has never happened. Everyone's it's an alignment.
Yep.
It's an alignment. Why would you even want these people who don't support your right to exist? And I'm damn, that's right. That's true. I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah. They supported you when what you were saying was convenient to them. Yeah. Basically.
They liked the romanticized version of me, but she can't be angry. Mm-hmm. Don't let her speak. Don't give her that platform. I have some people in my community who are Sarah, you have such an influential platform. How are you using it to create division? And I'm create division. I'm literally raising awareness for the women and children who don't have a voice right now. And like that is our right. That is our God-given right. We are allowed to have a voice. We are allowed to like speak up on the injustices that happen in Palestine.
I mean, it's always been about empowering your identity and finding your voice, and this is kind of like the climax of that, is like standing at the top of the hill of this journey from where you started. So for them to then be like, never mind.
Yeah, and also to use the very essence of what my art stands for against me.
That part.
This is something that, you know, we're seeing a lot of in like any of the bots that come and attack your page or whatever. Like they'll go to a nude photo of me and be like,
if you want to gossip now, I don't need people to agree with what I'm doing for me to care about their humanity.
Literally.
But if that's the way your mind works, that's
so
really
what
insane.
Does that justify the killing of women and children because a group of people don't support their liberation? Like that's our problem. That's something that I actively, you know, speak on in my art. And when I created this series, Ayab in 2020, which means shame, or shame on you, or shame on me, depending on however way you say it. Like, I created that because I wanted to break free from the cultural restrictions around our identity and our sexuality. Yeah. And that is something I actively work on for my people. I'm fighting for our liberation every single day, and liberation of our truly like the guilt and shame that binds us and restricts us from truly living our life and feeling, you know, our desires and acting on them, because there is so much like cultural restriction. And, you know, I have such a privilege being in the West, so I'm going to use my voice to give voice to those who don't have it. Yeah. And that's literally my sole mission in life and in my art. And so, like, to have people, like, just mindlessly, like threaten that.
How has the journey of finding your own voice outside of the identities that have been handed down to you, whether that's from, you know, your lineage or culture or society, how has that ended up informing the work that you do?
Yeah, I think honestly it's in everything that I've created. So I grew up in Perth, Western Australia, and that is a very...
Seen it on the map.
It's the other side, so not where Sydney and Melbourne is. It's super isolated and very whitewashed, and a lot of our neighborhoods were very white. And I went to schools that were very white, and, you know, I was... in most cases, like one of like 5 black or brown people in my class. You know, I really, and I speak a lot about this in the book, but I really struggled with trying to find a space that I belonged to, because at home we were raised very, very like conservative, good Christian girls. We must be submissive and obedient, and like, you know, we don't cry, we just, you know, clean and sit there quietly. And, you know, this was a lot of my upbringing. And then I would go to school, and it was very liberated, and the kids were free.
Really?
And they were allowed to sleep. They were allowed to sleep over their friends' houses and things that we could never do. And then, like, even in grade 4, like in my primary school, girls and boys were like running around making out with each other, and these are all like so or shameful in our culture. And so I was just like, I want to be more like this.
I'm like, how do I get onto this rebellion? Too.
And like, you know, we had our eyes always censored, like when we were watching any kind of romance, like if there was kissing, we had to cover our eyes. We never talked about sex. Like I wasn't even allowed to wear tampons because that was like breaking my virginity or whatever. And so I grew up very like curious about the world, but I was torn because at home there was like layers and layers and layers of shame around sexuality being like forced on us. And then at school they're like, come join the wild side. And so it took me a really long time to figure out like what I wanted. It took me a long time to like remove the layers of guilt and shame around my identity and my sexuality, and a lot of the time I blamed my culture for not feeling safe and for not feeling free. And what I learned was that I had to leave to figure it out. So I moved to Melbourne, and it was the first time I'd ever lived out of home. And I was just this like rebellious, debaucherous, like full extreme, dived into drugs, alcohol, everything without limits. And And then I realized like that wasn't going to work for me either. It took me a really long time to realize that though.
I love that you're like, I need to figure this out. Debauchery.
It took me 5 years of debauchery to realize that that wasn't sustainable.
Was there a moment where you're like, yeah, I could pull it back? Was there a defining moment?
There was several defining moments, but I want to say it wasn't until I got to Los Angeles that
That'll do it.
the real like defining moment happened, where I was struggling with an eating disorder, and I had a Valium addiction, and I was drinking a lot and doing like ungodly things to my body just to like get through, because my anxiety was taking over.
Like just a buzz.
Numbing, just like a walking numbing bombshell. And so I took myself to the desert, to Palm Springs, to self-rehabilitate, and from there I made serious life changes. And had I not gone and done that for myself...
Was that just a trip by yourself? Mm-hmm. What was that? It was like confession of one.
Honestly, it's kind of funny how it happened. So it was my friend's birthday. We like partied all night till like 4 a.m, and then I literally caught a bus and a train to get to the desert. Oh, it was a train and a bus the next day, and I booked an Airbnb for 2 weeks. Wow. On my first evening, I went to bed at 4 p.m. and I woke up at 9 covered in bed bugs. And
this is not where I thought the story was going.
No, but it's important because I entered like trauma brain mode, and I felt like my safe space of rest had been invaded. And what that did to my brain literally propelled the years of work that followed, because I started seeing very vivid flashbacks of my childhood around the bedroom and my safe spaces. And my brain didn't know how to process it because I was alone and I was covered in bugs. And I have photos I can probably share if you want to like.
Yes.
But it was disgusting.
This was a whole metaphorical trip.
Yeah, and so I called the Airbnb guys, and they're like, put all your shit in a bag, jump in the shower, and we'll send you a link to a new address. And so then I went to it because I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
I was determined to clean myself up. And so on this trip, I wrote down all the things that I was doing that was violating my body in horrible ways, and then I wrote down the ways I can make those changes. And so when I got back to LA, I moved out of the house I was staying in. I started going to the gym. I promised I was never going to purge again, and I still haven't. Not forcefully anyway. And like I started therapy, I started boxing, and every decision that I made in this time period has ultimately like got me to where I am today, because it was a matter of life or death.
Wow. Shout out to the bed bugs.
Yeah, the bed bugs.
But it's such a metaphor, because it's also the place that you found rest is obviously in bed, but also finding rest within the skin that you're in, and then having it so attacked to the point where it's like you want to rip it off, but you are forced to face yourself.
Yeah.
Like you cannot leave you. Wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. These bites stayed on me for 2 weeks, and they were almost like daily reminders to like heal, just like figure out how to heal.
So what was the healing process like? Just
honestly, I just needed a moment of pause, because the second I got to LA, I also was like trying to live in New York, and I was flying back and forth, and it was just, for like anyone coming here and anyone who has that access to like the scenes and the parties, and you just get whisked away, and it's like, it's not sustainable. And so I honestly just spent my days reading. I read Drama of a Gifted Child by Alice Miller, and that really like helped me begin to understand what to do next to get better. And then I just sat in the sun, and I literally just like meditated.
And that book is not about being gifted.
The gift of numbing, the gift of apathy.
Yeah.
That's what it represents. And I related to that, I resonated. I never felt more understood.
How did you get so good at setting really clear promises with yourself and sticking to them? Is that something you've always had within you, or?
I think I didn't really have a choice. I think there was no way I was going to survive the way I was living. And I knew I had a greater purpose, and I knew I was destined for greatness, and I had to trust that. Like, that could only happen if I changed the way I was living.
I think that that's the thing right there, is that you knew that there's something in you. How did you know, even in that state where you were using and binging and doing all these things, that there is this North Star within me and I have to save myself for it? Is that just something you had as a child that's always driven, or something that's instilled in you from your parents?
So when I was younger, I feel like from the early days of my memories, I have always romanticized my life as a form of escape. And, you know, I struggled with a lot of childhood trauma. And so for me, I found safety in, you know, isolating myself from everyone and just dreaming of a world where, you know, things could, you know, where anything could happen and I could be anyone I wanted. And I think that form of survival was actively working as a form of manifestation, and I didn't even know it. The fact that I was able to create these elaborate worlds for myself, to reimagine my scenarios, was my way of visualizing my future. And it was a subconscious practice. And so that also made me a very intuitive person, because I was always tapping into, like, deep within my heart and my soul to recognize what it is that I need to feel good and to feel safe. And when you are using these, like, survival mechanisms to you know, exist, it kind of just, like, grows with you. It becomes a part of your life. And so I always knew that this inner voice, this higher voice, and these visuals that I have, that my brain just, like, creates, and they're so beautiful, and it's in everything that you see in my photos, like, that for me was, like, something I had to trust, and that, you know, it followed me. And so I knew, like, I had to get better, because I knew what I looked like.
At that time, were you already shooting when you were in the desert? Or did that come after?
Oh, no, I was shooting. I was like 4 or 5 years into shooting.
Oh, so you're fully immersed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, and was the vision that you needed to start shooting? Okay, got it. You were already in it.
It was more just knowing that the version of myself in those moments, and it was in 2016, were not the versions of myself I was seeing in the future. And I needed to match the versions of myself I was seeing in the future. And I knew, had I continued on that path, there wouldn't have been a future for me.
I'm not even gonna ask, how did your art shift?
Oh, it became, you'll see it, it's in the work. The series are all mixed up within each chapter, so there's no chronological order of the series and the times they were released.
Got it.
But I divided the works into chapters based on themes and, like, the essence of, like, where I was at in life. So Dear Heart is the first chapter, and that reflects my coming of age story. It reflects, like, lust and, you know, lightness and experiencing things for the first time and rebelling and, you know, all the chaos that comes with desire and, you know, getting your heart broken, and then
Fuck, I found love. How did this happen?
it's the excitement and the buzz of living. And then Dear Darkness is the catalyst of, you know, my life after 2016. And so the more work that I did on myself, the more intense and necessary these series became for me, because it was a way of me organizing the chaos in my brain and trying to understand why it is I was existing and why I was having so many intrusive thoughts. And these one-liners are, again, like me trying to reimagine my life in a different scenario.
Tell me more about the intrusive thoughts.
They're everywhere. They're constant. They don't stop. But we can turn to...
I sound like a therapist. Tell me more about those intrusive thoughts. No, I'm genuinely, because I have a host of intrusive thoughts. They're like nonstop.
Yeah. I think they... everyone has them.
Not everyone admits them.
But sometimes some people have them more than others. And I think I deal with them on an hourly basis.
Yeah.
Maybe even a minute I've probably had 50 intrusive thoughts in the time that we've been sitting here.
We're talking, but there's also a whole other conversation going on.
There's a second.
There's 4 of us on the couch.
Yeah. There's the book, The Untethered Soul, and they talk about the roommate, and the roommate being like that second voice in your head that doesn't shut up. But I do think it's like another level of it. I think it's the one-liners in my work are based on just like giving into my intrusive thoughts to, you know, to understand a situation better, to process the situation better.
And I really want to focus in on fantasy because I feel like society makes it frivolous. And as you've said time and time again, that it was your way to survive and it's gotten you to where you are and being able to create these beautiful works of art. What do you have any like beef with fantasy when it comes to the fantasies that people have about who you are and your work based on the work that you're creating based on fantasy? It's almost like, you know, that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing the fingers at each other because you are the creator of the fantasy and you're putting it out there because one, this is the light that you would like people to see you and the light that you want to see your own life in.
Yeah.
But then there's the projection that comes from this fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, does it get sticky or hard to manage?
I try and remove myself from people's expectation of me, and I think when I release my work, it's no longer mine. So it's my way of healing and releasing an experience I'm trying to process. And so by giving it to the world, I'm now detached from it. And it's my gift. It's like, but it's also my release. Yeah. The funny thing here is that people think I'm really fucking cool.
You are.
And then like, it's just my best friends laugh because they know I'm just like not like, I don't even try and portray myself a certain way on Instagram. I just like, you know, I have cool clothes sometimes or like I post silly or whatever. But like the thing that I keep getting caught up in is like when like someone will come up to me and I'm with like one of my friends and they're like, oh, she's so cool. I love your work. Like I've been following you for years. Like you're a fucking icon, everything that you do. And then my friend's like, she's actually a loser. But like,
I'm sorry to disappoint you, but she's a dork.
She's actually like a big dork, and everything you're saying is an illusion. And it's just funny to have that, like, people will put you on a pedestal, but like, I honestly like, I don't relate to that version, so I just like don't give into it, you know?
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about, because then people are like, you weren't what I thought, you're not the art. And you're like, but the art came from you, so it is still, you know?
Yeah.
Like these reflect things that you value, the aesthetics, I'm curious, like, obviously foreign films is an influence, but is there anything else that has like heavily influenced what you make or what you want to make in the future?
I mean, I definitely feel like my culture has. You know, I grew up in a household where food was our love language, and food was a form of self-expression. And so for me, when I'm building my sets, it's really important to magnify like my self-expression through indulgence and my relationship with food.
Yeah.
Because Palestinian households are very much, it's like the kanafas in the center, but there's also a million other desserts surrounding it that our aunties have made.
It's a full buffet for not only the mouth,
like
but the eyes.
Coffee, and then it's always indulgent, and that's the way we connect. And so it's really important for me to like celebrate that in my work and bring in those roots, even if it's through a Western gaze or whatever, you know?
Yeah. I feel like it's kind of the third culture gaze almost, because you bring all of these worlds together. And how do you think that fantasy has helped you to expand your community, specifically Arab women and their perspective of themselves and who they could be, what they can be, especially when it comes to sensuality, sexuality, pleasure, and all this? How do you think fantasy has helped you to be able to do that?
Well, I think fantasy helped me when I was still at home. And then once I left, it became my reality. And so, but not many people get to leave, and that's why my work is so important in this way. It's because I get to live out my fantasies and the fantasies that I know we all have, and I get to live it without guilt and shame because I've worked so hard to remove that from my identity. so I can express myself freely and embrace my sexuality in the way that suits me and not what my culture says it should be.
Yeah. So the fantasies that you've created and captured are almost, they're an inspiration for people to then go and actualize the reality.
I mean, they're not meant to inspire anyone. They
might have side effects.
They have side effects. That's a good way to put it. For
No.
me, it's I create it because it helps me process my desires, my feelings, my intrusive thoughts, my healing. But and that, like, when I give it to the world, it's up to them how they process it. And I know, because people have told me every time, that my work gives voice to the feelings that they don't know how to communicate or express. And it's a side effect.
Yeah.
That's the best way to say it. Because my ultimate objective is
because
to
you're
process.
processing. Exactly, you're processing.
My feeling.
And they're like, I don't know how to. And you're like, I'm processing, and you're getting the nourishment from it. So hopefully that clicks eventually. But,
Yeah.
The goal is to process, folks.
Yeah.
That's the key.
And to find an outlet to process. My art is my outlet. So
How did you land on visual art and photography as your outlet?
that one, I've just always been a visual person. In high school, I loved art and painting and drama and expression through the arts. And I picked up a camera when I was 16, and I didn't stop. So it was. Yeah, it was just using photography as my form of finding freedom, because it was also like my disguise with my family. I'm like, I'm working, and then I'd go to a festival and get drunk and shoot people, and then come back home. And I was like, I got home at 10 because I didn't finish working till 9, but I got to spend 12 hours out in the wild and experiencing life through photography. And so it just became a part of my liberation.
I love that. That is really, really beautiful. You're saying something very clearly about this, everything we've talked about. But do you feel like it's time for you to say something different? And if so, what is that?
This book was my ode to my photography career and everything that I've created so far. I don't feel like my passions.
Whoa. You're gonna change media?
So I mean, I've already started in film. I've been a commercial director for a really long time, but I've done short films, but my passions are in long form storytelling now. And that's why it was really important for me to complete this book, because I felt like it was necessary to celebrate.
This is more than a chapter.
This is the 4 chapters of my life. I'm ready for different executions, but my core will always be telling my story. Yeah.
Is there a story that you feel especially called to tell through film?
I mean, I think I want to create, there's 1,000 stories in this book, and I want to create them all. So
I feel like this is an anthology, an anthology series. I would, I'm sure it's in the works. Knowing you, queen of manifesting, I already know that it's in the works.
There's things in the works, yeah.
What's the biggest piece of advice that you would give to baby Sarah, who this book is dedicated to you?
Biggest piece of advice. I mean, she's such a badass. I don't know. She doesn't need it.
She doesn't need it. Just live life.
It was baby Sarah that was able to figure this out, I think. Yeah. She's very resilient.
That's actually really beautiful. Anytime someone's asked, what advice would you give to your younger self? People always have something, as if their experience was a mistake. And I think it's a really beautiful way to live and see your life in the world, that everything is necessary for me to get to where I am.
Yeah. You're so sweet. It's been so lovely to have this conversation with you, and I love that we were able to get so deep so quickly. You've created a very safe space.
That's what we like.
And this canapa really
I know, we forgot about the canapa.
It's everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I have to give you a big squeeze, literally.
Let's do it.